I was curious, I'm sure you're well aware, presidents with vision are great, but they don't necessarily get policy accomplished. And from your role as Speaker and in Congress, how as a president, do you make things happen, turn it into real policy?
Yeah, let me draw a distinction. Okay, I mean, presidents who have visions that don't get accomplished are just making speeches. They're not getting anything done. You don't hire them for that purpose. I served. I came in as a freshman under Carter, who was not getting much done, and in fact Carter had 13% inflation, 22% interest rates. We were sliding into a recession, which would end up with 10.8% unemployment. We had the Iranian hostage crisis for 444 days. The Soviets invaded Afghanistan. Soviet proxies were in Mozambique, Angola, Nicaragua, Grenada, and starting to go into Costa Rica, into El Salvador. And we had gasoline rationing every other day based on the last number of your license plate. Some of you remember this experience. I had a good friend of mine, Dave Bossie, who was 13 that year. And he said his job he remembers it vividly because his job every morning was to go out back with a screwdriver and make sure that the car that needed gasoline had the right license plate. Yeah. Well, I've always thought, by the way, it's a great test whether you're liberal or conservative. If I tell you we had a policy so stupid that we were teaching 13-year-olds how to get around it, if you're a conservative, you say they should drop the policy. If you're a liberal, you say, that's proof that we need license plate police at every gas station. So it's a nice, easy test for liberal and conservative. So Reagan came in, and people tend to forget. In 1980, there were serious articles written, "Is the presidency too big?" Can no one person fill a presidency? By August of 1981, nobody would write that article. But Reagan also understood something. Reagan had been the head of the Screen Actors Guild. He had negotiated and led a strike. He had been the governor of California, dealing for 6 of his 8 years with the Democratic Assembly. And he really ran to achieve something, not just a posture. And so Reagan understood, I think, 2 key things. One was that his power was directly related to his ability to communicate with the American people. As he would put it, he tried to shine the light on the American people so they would turn up the heat on Congress. And all of his speeches were designed in that sense, as educational speeches, to get people to understand why he was doing what he was doing and why he needed their help. That was the first base of his presidency. The second was he understood every day that if he didn't have independents and Democrats, he couldn't govern. So Chris and I did a movie called Ronald Reagan, Rendezvous with Destiny, and we have a scene where Gerald Ford in '76 invites him to come down to the convention and speak. Reagan's opening line is, "My fellow Republicans," and then he pauses, "and those Democrats and independents around the country who agree with us." And it was just instinctive. He automatically knew, I have to be inclusive. I have to be an American president. I can't just be a Republican president. So we get elected. I helped develop pieces of the '80 campaign. I actually organized the first Capitol Steps event in history in October or September of '80. And all the House and Senate candidates came together. The minute the election was over, we'd won control of the Senate, which was a huge surprise to everybody. We won 6 Senate seats by a total of 75,000 votes. And I've always thought that the Capitol Steps event helped each of those very marginal candidates get just enough to get over the top. But we didn't have the House. We gained 33 seats, but Tip O'Neill was going to be Speaker. Tip was a hardcore Boston Irish ward politician who believed in liberalism. And he was a sincere guy, but he's going to defend the old faith. And so we realized we had to get 1 out of every 3 Democrats to vote with us. So from day one, Reagan and the House Republicans are working to find that 1 out of every 3 Democrats. And we did. And as a result, we passed the program. When I got to be president, and when I got to be Speaker, jumping ahead. That was from my future speech. When I got to be Speaker, it was patently obvious if I wanted anything signed into law, I had to get Bill Clinton's signature. I mean, I could make speeches all year, I could posture, we could schedule votes, we could play games. In the end, under our Constitution, He couldn't get anything if I wouldn't schedule it, and I couldn't get anything if he wouldn't sign. And so we would routinely, we'd hit each other at a press conference and then meet for 5 hours. And then we go back and hit each other, and then we'd meet for 5 hours. I mean, this went on for weeks. And what you have to do is very simple. You walk into a room, you close the door, and you say, look, I have to have this, and I can't do this. Now tell me your situation. And you start to build a box, and you start to figure out what can I give you that doesn't violate my beliefs, and what can you give me that doesn't violate your beliefs. And frankly, you maneuver a fair amount. I mean, we passed welfare reform twice, and he vetoed it, but we knew the election was coming. And we knew that 92% of the country favored welfare reform. So we finally passed it.